Blog Talk Radio.
Carol the Coach. Sex, love, and relationships. We talk about it here.
Carol the Coach. Compassion with contemporary relevance.
I am a psychotherapist. I can be your personal life coach, and I can help you with your issues. There are no problems too small or too big. You can talk about anything.
Speaker, columnist, radio TV host, and commentator. Carol the Coach brings messages of wellness and empowerment within reach of everyday people every day.
Almost 5 years ago, I lost my soulmate in an accident. He was killed in a plane crash. Life just, for me, has seemed to stop.
There are groups all over the city. I teach one. It is a specific way to start thinking so that you shift how you see the world, which then shifts your energy, and then you feel better and you actually see things differently.
Carol the Coach. Always available, too, at carolthecoach.com.
Now, I've got Russell on the line.
I'm 47 years old. I'm a truck driver. I'm married. I have a wife in San Francisco.
Okay.
I haven't been home in 6 months. My thing is, I don't know if I have a sex addiction or what the problem is. Why do I want what I can't have? And as soon as I can have it, I don't want it anymore.
You're right on target when you say, I don't know if I have a sexual addiction. Well, guess what? Yes, you do. And you know what? That's my specialty, Russell, so you're at the right place. Continue.
I meet women online, and I'm in a different part of the country. I travel all 48 states, so I love sex.
I hear self-esteem issues. You never felt good enough, and you didn't feel like you were getting what you should have then, and you're reenacting that now. Do you want to change that about yourself?
You get what you need.
Carol the Coach. Sex, love, and relationships. We talk about it here.
Carol the Coach. Compassion with contemporary relevance.
I am a psychotherapist. I can be your personal life coach, and I can help you with your issues. There are no problems too small or too big. You can talk about anything.
Speaker, columnist, radio TV host, and commentator. Carol the Coach brings messages of wellness and empowerment within reach of everyday people every day.
Almost 5 years ago, I lost my soulmate in an accident. He was killed in a plane crash. Life just, for me, has seemed to stop.
There are groups all over the city. I teach one. It is a specific way to start thinking so that you shift how you see the world, which then shifts your energy, and then you feel better and you actually see things differently.
Carol the Coach. Always available, too, at carolthecoach.com.
Now, I've got Russell on the line.
I'm 47 years old. I'm a truck driver. I'm married. I have a wife in San Francisco.
Okay.
I haven't been home in 6 months. My thing is, I don't know if I have a sex addiction or what the problem is. Why do I want what I can't have? And as soon as I can have it, I don't want it anymore.
You're right on target when you say, I don't know if I have a sexual addiction. Well, guess what? Yes, you do. And you know what? That's my specialty, Russell, so you're at the right place. Continue.
I meet women online, and I'm in a different part of the country. I travel all 48 states, so I love sex.
I hear self-esteem issues. You never felt good enough, and you didn't feel like you were getting what you should have then, and you're reenacting that now. Do you want to change that about yourself?
You get what you need.
I got an interesting email this week. He says, thank you for taking my email in question. My girlfriend and I listen to you on the radio, and she respects your opinion as I do. So here's the question. I've been separated for 9 months. I'm working on a divorce. Is it okay to date? I believe it is. But she's not comfortable with being around people who know my divorce is not final. Can you help? He kind of answered it when he said if she's not comfortable, it's not a good gig. And Pat, you have some questions about dating?
I am 58 years old, and I've been divorced for years. I was watching the Oprah show the other day, and they were talking about
sexual desire.
How does that factor in if you're after menopause?
Obviously, being postmenopausal, you aren't going to have the same pheromones, but then the men you're probably going to be dating, they're not going to have that need to mate with you, for children. How do you feel about hooking up with somebody else?
To bring Carol to your station, call John Quick at 317-432-0309. Available as a long-form talk show and in 60-second infomercials for even more revenue opportunity. Carol the Coach, truly refreshing radio, enriching the lives of your listeners.
Okay, well, I am Carol the Coach, and I am so glad to be with you. I do a show every week on sexual addiction. And, you know, this is a field that nobody talks about. And so what we try to do is educate you about what sexual addiction is, as well as what you need to do to get healthy, whether you are the addict, the partner, a family member, or someone who is just concerned about this issue. And, you know, I can't speak enough to the many intricacies that this disorder and affects other people. You know, sometimes what it does is it interferes with families. It causes divorces, certainly separations, if not emotional intimacy issues. It also causes other issues like depression. Some people are triggered with bipolar depression when they can't take the stress of this illness. So I am here to talk with you about what is it that you can do to stay healthy, whether you love an addict or you are an addict. And tonight we're going to be talking with Dr. Susan Campling, and she actually is running an eating disorders group for the Magnolia Creek Treatment Center. Now this has a new program to help partners with eating disorders that have occurred perhaps because they've done a comparison. Now, if you're a partner, you know that many times when you found out that your husband or your wife had an eating disorder, you wondered if you caused it. Well, as the partner of an addict, oftentimes you compare yourself to the pornography that he or she watches, the affairs that he or she is having. And if you are prone to an eating disorder, it can really escalate and exacerbate the behaviors that create a lot of somatic problems. So Dr. Campling is going to be talking about how her treatment team assists clients around the issues of disordered eating. And while they're at it, they're working on your anxiety, your trauma, and your loss, as well as other therapeutic concerns. Now, you know, we all know that we intervene at the least intrusive type of care. And then, if needed, maybe we refer for a weekend or a week or intensive outpatient or full-fledged 5 or 6 week treatment center. And then, if need be, there's usually a transitional living period that different centers promote because the client is not really ready to go back to their real-life situation. So I'm here to tell you that Dr. Campling is going to be talking about what you can do if you have an eating disorder and you feel like a lot of your issue is that you don't feel like you compare to the fantasized sex objects that maybe your husband or wife are looking at. And in the meantime, if you would have a question about that situation, you can give us a call at 646-595-3284. That is the call-in for any of our guests. Again, get a piece of paper and a pencil or grab your phones and put this number in because this will always be the number you can call in to ask questions. And that number is 646-595-3284 here at Sex Help with Carol the Coach on Blog Talk Radio. You know, I'm really excited to be doing this show for a variety of reasons. One is that you can access us on iTunes. You can actually go to iTunes and put in Sex Help with Carol the Coach or Hope, Strength, and Recovery, and or even, you know, you can put in sex addiction, and I'm the only show that comes up. Now, I'm hoping that I end up having a little competition, because what that means is that this field is broadening and there are more opportunities to get psychoeducational information. I'm all about psychoeducational information. That's why I do this show every Monday night at 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. But if you can't listen live, you can definitely subscribe for free by going to iTunes, putting in Sex Help with Carol the Coach, and then hitting the subscribe free button. And every show we've ever done will be downloaded to your computer or your iPod, and all future shows. So it's, one thing about the digital world is it may have caused us a bunch of problems, but it has also been very accessible to getting help and getting the information that we need. Now, I just happened to staff a case yesterday, and this woman had an eating disorder, and she'd gone from 103 pounds to 90.2 pounds in 5 months. She has a very disengaged relationship with her husband. And as I was staffing the case, it's not my case, but I was helping somebody with it, I said, you need to find out more about that relationship between husband and wife. Not saying that her issues aren't solely her own, but what I know to be true is that husbands and wives magnetize people to demonstrate or to produce the very behaviors that we need to work on. So if I didn't have enough love as a woman growing up in a family, if I came from a rigid, disengaged family, then guess what? I marry a rigid, disengaged husband because I need to work out my issues with that person. So I get round two to try it again. And I certainly am not telling women, or men for that matter, partners, that they deserve what they get. But in some ways, if they get the same thing over and over again, it gives them a second opportunity to really work on and get their needs met. And that's what I have a feeling that Dr. Susan Campling is going to be talking about. Why are eating disorders so prevalent? And why is there almost invariably some sort of trauma that precedes an eating disorder, as well as other addictions? It's not just what somebody eats. It also has to do with what has happened to them in their past. So this woman is an expert. I can't wait to talk with her. And it sounds like Magnolia Creek Treatment Center is an amazing center to help partners of sex addicts as well as other addictions get healthier. And one of the things I know, whenever I'm dealing with a woman who has post-traumatic stress disorder because her husband has had ongoing relationships with sexual addiction, I say, it is time for you to work on yourself. And when you work on yourself and when you learn self-care, you're much more likely to take better care of you and feel more confident. It is certainly a hit to the self-esteem whenever you are with somebody who has a sexual addiction. But come on, what that really truly means is that you have to figure out how to say, this is not about me, this is about them. I need to work on me, but that is separate from them. And they are not the way they are because of me, nor am I the way I am because of them. Again, if you have a question, you can call 646-595-3284. And I certainly welcome your calls. I get calls all over the country, actually all over the world. And they ask for referrals, and, they say, hey, can I work with you? And although I do Skype and I do phone coaching, when it comes to hardcore therapy, I recommend that you get with a therapist who has the most expertise possible. With sexual addiction, that means you go to www.sexhelp.com and you look up a therapist who's certified in your area. If that doesn't occur, you can always email me at carolthecoach@AOL.com, and I will get you to the right place. Just consider me your own personal therapist that will guide you to where you need to be. So, again, I cannot stress how important it is to really work on dealing with your issues individually, no matter what kind of family system you came from, and no matter what kind of marriage you're in. Women who have been traumatized usually in some way act out their trauma by doing something we call reenactment trauma, and that means that they end up hurting themselves because they have been hurt. And if that's the case, then clearly what you need to do is work on getting healthy, building self-esteem, and making your life the best that it can be. I'm a life coach as well as a psychotherapist, and that means that I help taking life to the next level. And so many people really don't know what to do to take their life to the next level. And I encourage them to do the healing that they may need to do. And then after the healing, they can very, very gingerly but methodically say, okay, now what do I want in my life? How can I get that? How can I find somebody who really makes a difference? And, that is not always easy. I have always said that one of the things that I know to be true is that if you don't get still and listen to what is going on inside of you, you will very easily forget what you need to do to find your purpose and your passion. And that's so important to know, hey, what makes you happy? What triggers your needs? What do you want to do with your life? And how does that happen? And again, it can be very, very difficult to figure out on your own. And that's where going to a coach or figuring out what you can do, who can you go to get the real scoop about your life and what needs to happen. And I am here to tell you that that's not easy to do on your own. And therefore, you may need the help of somebody who very clearly can guide you and listen to what is it that you like to do. Now, let me tell you, I oftentimes, when I'm working with addicts, they are so preoccupied with their lives that they don't know how to get out of the addiction and focus on something else. And so when that occurs, then what I tell them is, obviously, you can't really work on that part of yourself until you really focus in on what it is that you need. Do you know what I mean? You have a disorder that is absolutely, positively interfering in your life. So what do you do when you can't figure out what it is that you might need? Now, here's the deal. When I studied with Dr. Patrick Carnes and I got my education, we spent about a year and a half studying addiction and what works in the addict's best interest. And then you know what we did for one of our modules? We worked on how to take the addict, once they have begun to heal, how to take them to the next level. And I was pretty impressed with that, actually, because clearly that person that wants to make something of themselves can't do it unless they've healed the shame, the blame, the hurt, and the fear. Unfortunately, I cannot emphasize enough how those feelings really keep somebody from being their true self. So I'm a person that really believes in healing the shame that binds you and working through all those feelings and then clearly taking your life to the next level by deciding what is it that you really, really want. It just does not get better than that. Okay. Now, let me talk to you a little bit about, sexual addiction groups. You know, one of the things I'm doing right now is that I'm running a sexual addiction group, and I absolutely have to keep it confidential. I can't go into what they talk about, but I can tell you that my groups are 16 weeks. If you're an addict, very clearly what you need to do is decide that you need as many interventions as possible to tap into the strength, the hope, and the recovery to stay sober and to stay abstinent from this addiction. So, here's what I recommend. I recommend that anybody who feels like they have an addiction, they need to get a good assessment by a certified sexual addictions therapist. And once they get that assessment, they need to follow whatever the certified therapist says. Now, it's my recommendation that if somebody is just dealing with this issue for the first time, that they indeed make it by with 3 to 5 12-step groups a week. You know, SA, Sexual Addictions, or actually it's Sex Anonymous, or SAA, Sexual Addictions Anonymous, are 2 12-step groups that are almost free. They're offered usually 30, 40, 50 times in a metropolitan city. And they're a place for you to go where you can get the help you need. Now, in addition to those 12 steps, and in addition to seeing somebody who's really certified in this field, a certified sexual addictions therapist, and remember I told you to go to sexhelp.com to find out who that is, you should be in a sexual addictions group because you need to be working with people that have this disorder and are willing to go deeper with you. And that can be very, very difficult to do if you are not accessing all the services available. And, you know, I can't emphasize enough how important that is when you really, really, really need to utilize every strategy possible to stay sober. I mean, just think about this for a second. What could you do to improve your life and to actually make you compliant? Well, nobody can make you be compliant. We know that to be true. But what is also so important is that you utilize every tool and resource available to do that. And when you do that, I can't tell you how important it is to be able to figure out who you can trust to share the information. So, here we go. I am going to go ahead and do a commercial break, and then we are going to be talking with Dr. Susan Campling, who's going to be talking about eating disorders. And I am so appreciative of you being on the show, listening in, calling up, and finding out more about this disorder. And so I will be right back with you, and when we come back, we'll be talking with a woman who has started an eating disorder situation by being there for anybody who has an eating disorders issue. Now, I've got somebody on the line, and I would like to talk with them. Are you there?
Hello?
Hello. Is this Dr. Susan Campling?
Yes, it is.
Well,
good evening.
Good evening. How are you doing?
I am doing well. A little confused by the time zone difference, so I apologize.
No problem. And we're just excited to have you because this is actually a new field, is it not?
Well, you mean in terms of the work that I've been doing?
Yes, where eating disorders and sexual addiction are somewhat connected by virtue of how partners feel about their bodies, their sexuality, and their body image.
Well, one of the things that occurred at the SASH, the Society for the Advancement of Sexual Health conference this year, we're going to announce the release of our book, Making Advances. And Making Advances was based on research that a group of women in the field of sex and love addiction had began, oh my goodness, it must have been about 4 years or so ago.
Okay.
And one of the areas of interest that I had in this area was around eating disorders and sex and love addiction, especially in how it relates to partners, and also some other topics that weren't necessarily always discussed. I have an interest in female sex offenders and also in domestic violence and sex and love addiction. So we did do some research on these topics, and our book, which is coming out, actually, we have copies of the book, but I'm not sure when they officially go for sale, but it will definitely be highlighted at the conference in a couple of weeks. One of the things that we find is that this appreciation for the complexity of compulsive behaviors and how people use behaviors and, of course, eating behaviors, whether it's restriction or eating behaviors, whether it's binging or bulimic behaviors, how often we tend to see these among partners and sex and love addicts themselves. And how, frankly, in our own field, sometimes we don't appreciate that. Like there's a little bit of, how do I put it, the communication or the awareness. It's like drug and alcohol was years ago, where a lot of times people didn't ask about other compulsive behaviors, and people who were working in chemical addiction didn't always ask about sexual behaviors. So, my hope is as we become more cognizant of these interactive addictive processes, especially in women, we'll, be more cognizant of the need to ask more questions in order to help them.
Well, that makes sense again. So let's go over some of the correlates that you see. So you're saying that when you're dealing with partners of sex and love addicts, or when you're dealing with love addicts, you find that they have different types of compulsions. Maybe that's bulimia. Maybe that's anorexia. Maybe that's compulsive overeating. What would you say are your highest correlates?
Well, we tend to see that people who restrict, and our anorexic clients our food anorexic client may be a restrictor. One of the things in a data set that I've been working with Dr. Carnes on from the FBI also shows that they tend to not necessarily be sexually active, and they tend to watch more, which is interesting to me. So we'll see elevations in voyeurism in that group, but also they are restricting in terms of their sexuality and in some clients in terms of their eating behaviors as well. So that to me is very interesting about how the behavior is this combination of fear about my body with another person, but the sexuality still comes out and is expressed through the watching.
Got it. And so these are sex addicts themselves that may have the tendency to be voyeurs and be restrictive in terms of their eating and what they put in their body. Is that correct?
Absolutely. But those of us who've worked in the field, yourself included, and when we've worked with partners, I wish I had a data set on this because I don't at my fingertips. Maybe one of my colleagues does. But I know just from experience of working in the field, when I work with the addict and the partners would come in, it wasn't unusual for them to come into treatment to meet their spouse for the first time in a couple of weeks and be provocatively dressed. Or I've had partners who had multiple plastic surgeries. Partners will see pornography and then doubt the integrity of their own body or view themselves as somehow less than because their addicted spouse has been spending hours and hours and hours looking at idealized, often not realistic images of women. So that
and you've been a pioneer in this field. There is no doubt about it. And you've worked. Where was the last facility you worked before Magnolia Treatment Center?
Before Magnolia Creek, I worked at Pine Grove.
Yeah, and so at Pine Grove, which is absolutely known as one of the best treatment centers for sexual addicts, you would see these women coming in. They would be provocatively dressed. They might have had multiple plastic surgeries, and you knew that their self-esteem and their body image had been affected by their partner's sexual addiction.
Of course. And it would make sense. I mean, I totally understood and I could relate to this sense of feeling less than.
Yeah.
Because my spouse has been objectifying and using images of other women, sometimes actually being with other women, as a substitute for me. The question of aren't I good enough, I think is a question that certainly would arise. I don't know that many people wouldn't question what's wrong with me.
Well, yes, it would take a very strong woman to say, this isn't about me, this is about them. And you and I both know in treatment we try to convey this message that the partner, as in the partner that's not the addict, may end up needing to really garner his or her strength to know that they are good enough no matter what's going on in the addict's life.
Oh, absolutely. But again, as you said, a lot of times, especially when the shock of discovery occurs, I think that it takes some healing for this usually woman to realize that this is not about them. That this is their partner's disease, not deficiency on their part. However, that said, any time a human being is tends to be shocked by something, it's a normal process to try and figure out what can I do to change my circumstance so that this doesn't happen again. And we look at all the things that we think might be areas of improvement or things that need to change. And a lot of times we look at ourselves in the mirror and think, there must be something wrong with me. And it takes, as you know, sometimes we do it in counseling. I encourage partners to do some work for themselves because the gaslighting effect of living with an addict often results that the addict supports the partner's fears. Addicts will sometimes be so sadistic as to say, your body, your breasts aren't large enough, or you're not in good enough shape, or if you only did this or you only did that, that the addict will feed on the fears and insecurities of their partners at times. And because we love people, sometimes we believe it.
Yeah, and I do believe that in general, most people do have the desire to want to believe that if they improved, they'd be more appealing. And that is obviously a deficit way to think about things, but a lot of people do have low self-esteem. And so when you joined Magnolia Treatment Center, you decided that this was an area that would really help partners of addicts. Is that correct?
Well, one of the things that we're launching is a partial program for partners and family members, because I also see this in daughters of addicts.
Oh, yeah.
That this is a partial hospital program where partners and family members of addicts can come, and if they are dealing with issues of body image, dealing with issues of eating disorders, compulsive exercising, all the things we tend to see in this population, we have a program for them. And this is new and cutting, I think, in some ways desperately needed, especially in that it's a partial program where the partner can go away, and it's a minimum 2 weeks, but for 2 weeks they can go away and deal with the experience of being with an addict, and also have someone support them to regain a sense of their own sense of body self, where they can have a reality check about, what, this isn't about food, this isn't about exercise, this isn't about achieving an ideal, this is about acceptance that this is not your problem, that this is their problem. And the things for the partner to work on, it's an opportunity for them to do that separate from the addict.
And is there any other programs, to your knowledge, anywhere in the country that meet this need?
Not that I'm aware of, not at a partial level. I mean, occasionally there are people who do really good work with intensives. However, this program is designed, at a partial level of care, so that for some people it may actually be covered by their insurance, which is an advantage. This is therapy. This isn't an intensive workshop. Right.
And so you have actually been working on this program for how long?
Well, probably about 5 weeks, to be honest.
Okay.
It's new, so I'm not going to deny that. However, the exceptional staff that I have at Magnolia Creek has actually been dealing with these issues for a very long time. And I have dietitians, I have nursing, I have a medical physician, and I also have a nurse practitioner, psychiatrist. I have a phenomenal staff here at Magnolia Creek whose expertise has been in relationship and mood disorders and eating disorders.
So where is Magnolia Creek located?
Magnolia Creek is in Birmingham, Alabama, and it is amazing because 10 minutes down the road is beautiful urban, Birmingham, which is an absolutely gorgeous city, and yet we have this unbelievable piece of property secluded in the woods. We have 40 acres that is our property. It's private. We have a 6-acre lake, and our residential program actually is on the lake, so that in that building, you are actually able to wake up in the morning and the windows overlook the lake. The partial program, clients stay nearby in a local modern apartment complex, and we have apartments in that area, which is maybe about 5 minutes from the residential center, but they would come and spend the entire day with us and then return to the apartments to spend the evening.
So they're shuttled or transported to and from?
Yes, at the partial hospital level, that's correct.
And if somebody is listening who knows that they are anorexic or they know that they're bulimic or they have just horrible, horrible body image and go back and forth from binging and starving, how can they get a hold of Magnolia Creek to get the assessment? Because I imagine somebody has to assess them before they can actually be admitted to a partial or an inpatient.
Yes. And certainly they are welcome to call. And, of course, my laptop just died. But it's an 800 number. I'm going to try and pull it up for you.
Okay.
And they can also contact me at Dr. Campling at live.com. Or you can also contact, that's probably the easiest to remember, quite frankly. I know that's, it's DrCampling, so it's Dr. Campling at live.com. And if they were to email me, what I'll do is forward that email to Ashley, who is my intake coordinator, and she will contact them and get back to them and, talk to them about our program and what we do and what resources they have.
Well, and I need to tell our listeners that if they need the phone number, I think I've got it, and that is 1-888-494-4213. And
Thank
so,
you.
again, absolutely, I know what it's like to have started somewhere new. And so that number, again, is 1-888-494-4213. And I want to make sure to talk a little bit about making advances which is the book that, gosh, you recommend, and it's not out yet, although there may be some copies. Making Advances, is that for clinicians or is that for clients themselves?
Well, we're recommending it for clinicians.
Okay.
It is a book for clinicians, although I have heard that, some clients, their clinician may want to read it and they may feel that it's appropriate for them to review.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that it is the most technical of texts to read. It's written from a women-centered perspective and relationship-centered perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of what's discussed there would be, I think, great material for a clinician to, perhaps assign some of these interventions or talk to the clients about, these are some things to examine and to look at. Here are some ideas and exercises that you can do. So the clinician themselves can use the book as a tool for the client for when they come in and explore different topics, not just, as I said, there's some topics that are slightly separate around technology that are feminine-centered. A lot of them, I guess, is what I'm saying, is that they're feminine-centered topics unique to women. Some of them overlap with the treatment of male sex and love addicts. However, what we wanted to do is write a text for clinicians that enabled them to understand the treatment and the unique circumstances of female sex and love addicts. And again, most of the data that we have comes from the women's study.
Well, and that makes so much sense. So obviously you're telling clinicians this might be a book that they could give their clients, but really, as a therapist, it's important to read the book and decide what fits for each individual client, correct?
Absolutely.
Now,
especially when you have clients that, in early recovery. I'm always very cautious about what I give a client in early recovery, out of fear that their anxiety is so high that they might misread something. So I tend to like to start out slowly, and I think that this text is really not a book for someone in early recovery to use as a workbook, for example.
Yeah,
now, in the back of the book, what I will say, though, is that there is an appendix of recommended readings for clients.
Okay. And that appendix also includes books like Deceit by Claudia Black and women's books that typically speak to women about betrayal and how not to take that personally, correct?
Absolutely. In fact, Deceived is one of my favorite books. Mm-hmm. And I love that book. And, of course, Kelly Daniels has her book and her text, or her workbook for female sex and love addicts, which is also very useful. I've used that with clients in the past. Alex Kalahakis is an author in the book, and, of course, her books, I think, are extremely useful for clients or for clinicians. Deb Corley is in this book. She's written a number of books and articles around disclosure and issues related to working with the client around meetings and special topics around family members. Anna Valente and Linda Hudson have written a section on technology and the use of the internet and social network sites, all the different technology issues that may come up for sex and love addicts. So, these are all excellent, well-known clinicians in the field. That
100%. And most of them are certified sexual addictions therapists in addition to having skills with eating disorders or attachment disorders or betrayal and infidelity.
Absolutely. So now we have an extremely well-versed set of authors in this text.
That is fantastic. And I am on the website right now, and I have to tell you, that website is www.magnolia-creek.com. And this place looks so serene, and, it looks so feminine. I mean, I'm sure men would love it too, but when you look at it, you just go, oh, this would be a wonderful place to get away, get centered, set your goals, get the support you need, and change your life.
That was actually one of the things that won my heart about the facility. I had pulled into the grounds, and I was so impressed by the lake and the house. It was almost an interesting thing because I always thought to myself, where can I find a facility that deals with women's issues, that conveys the sense of peace and centering that many women need, a place that is tree-covered, a place that's secluded, a place that is extremely safe. And as soon as I arrived there, I could feel the tension melt off my shoulders.
Just dissipate, huh?
Yeah, and knowing the extremely talented staff that I have, I just thought, wow, what an unbelievable place. And what's also amazing to me is that I don't know that many people know about it. I've been in the field a long time, and I talked to some of my colleagues and said, have you ever heard of this place? And they may have had a vague, recollection of hearing it or hearing about it, but it's this hidden gem of a treatment center. And I'm so fortunate to be here, unbelievably fortunate.
Fantastic. Well, and boy, they have, you can call in 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but certainly they have primary therapists on site from 8:30 to 8:30, which is almost unheard of. And so besides having a beautiful center to work within, it sounds like you've got a lot of professionals that have really gone above and beyond to be available to the clients and their families, because you do encourage family involvement. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I mean, we have Family Week. Our family therapists do sessions with the families via phone, because I know a lot of family members can't, come every week for sessions, but they do sessions with the client and the client's family members. It's not just one or two sessions. It's pretty much weekly. At some point, they're having a conversation with family members, which I think is also extraordinary. We have nursing staff 24 hours a day, which I know, many treatment centers, many of the large treatment centers do. We have 10 beds. It's extremely exclusive.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it sounds like it. And again, if people are interested in finding out more about the center, they can call Ashley at 888-494-4213. Ask for Ashley herself, or it's extension 100. Now, I want to ask you, you mentioned exercise disorder, and I think for a lot of people, they wonder, what does that mean? So give us some of the criteria for somebody who may have an exercise disorder, a compulsive exercise disorder.
Often what I see are that people who come in who have some degree of restriction. Mm-hmm. So they are restricting their food, and they are exercising for hours and hours and hours each day. So it's they're in the gym. Their life centers around exercise. It's not a athletic situation where someone is preparing for an event or something that has a designated end. This is a total preoccupation with running or track or soccer, the sense that if I don't do this, I'm not good enough. There are a lot of perseverating voices in the minds and the heads of these women around doing. Mm-hmm. And some of the work that we do with this population is to try and slow them down and have them become, it's so hard for them, but have them become just a little bit more comfortable each day with allowing their body to just be, not necessarily to do.
Well, and obviously that's where a woman feels like she may have control, but ultimately when your behavior is out of control, you don't have control, and these women can't relax when it comes to their own sense of exercise or body image.
Absolutely. It's the illusion of I'm in control despite the fact that my world is really falling apart.
Mm-hmm. And, you are an excellent woman with boundaries. I just tell my audience that I met I did meet Dr. Campling, but before I met her, you are a woman who knows boundaries. And when people are unhealthy for each other and you fear they're going to be violent or they're attacking each other verbally, you separate the two and you send them in separate cars home. I mean, you do not promote them fighting and bickering and physically abusing each other, even if they're used to it. And as professionals, we have to set those healthy boundaries. And so I was so impressed when you did that with one of my clients.
Well, sometimes it's just common sense. And I hate to say it that way, but this is not a safe situation. No, you can't do this. This is not acceptable. And we do the best we can, all of us, I think, to keep our clients safe.
And in actuality, in our situation that I'm referencing, it was a partner who was so angry at her husband for some betrayals in the past that she couldn't let go of that anger, and she was seeing it even though it did not appear to be there anymore. And she just couldn't let go. It was almost as if she let go, something would get by her, and she wasn't going to let that happen again. And
I think there's so much fear, Carol. When a partner, the description that I have is when you, especially in marital or committed relationship partnerships, mm-hmm. when you love someone and you've built your life around them, and what can happen sometimes is people lose touch with the reality of the relationship. And that's part of what we tend to see is that, while the addict's acting out, the partner, may or may not, they want to believe. They want to believe that they're late coming home every night and they must be at work. They want to believe that the phone bills are elevated or that their partner's on the computer for hours and hours and hours. They want to believe. And when that illusion is shattered, it's as if someone dropped a bomb in the life of this partner, and everything that they had attached meaning to is destroyed. Now, that's how it feels like. I'm not saying that that's what exactly is going on, but it is such a devastating, heart-wrenching experience for so many of the partners that it totally makes sense to me when I see the responses that many partners have. Of course, I'm not saying that all partners have these responses.
Right, absolutely not.
But many of them, they're enraged, or they self-harm in some way. They may become violent with their spouse. There may be domestic violence in between both partners. I mean, in many ways, I see domestic violence inherent in sex and love addiction, in that, some of the things we were discussing about having a partner, telling a partner that their body isn't good enough, or that, if you would only do X, Y, or Z, then I wouldn't need to sexually act out, challenging a woman's sexuality or their belief about certain sexual behaviors. Those kinds of gaslighting, psychologically abusive kinds of comments, I think, are so devastating to partners that once they realize what's been going on, they can have a variety of responses. And as clinicians, understanding this and having compassion for it and setting boundaries, that's what we do. No, you cannot run with scissors is one of those things that we do.
Well, Dr. Susan, you just said gaslighting twice. So explain to our listeners, what is gaslighting from your point of view?
Oh, my goodness. It's a reference to a film noir movie that, oh, my goodness, I think it was in the 40s. Ingrid Bergman and Spencer Tracy, I think it was. And or Maurice Chevalier. And in the movie, the woman would go through the house and turn the lights off. And her husband was trying to have her go mad, actually. He was deliberately trying to make her ill. So he would follow her and turn the lights back on. And then he would go back to his study, and when she came in, he would look at her and say, "Darling, why haven't you turned the lights off yet?" And she would doubt herself. When we lie to our partner and our partner trusts us and believes what we are saying to them, and we say, "No, dear, I didn't talk to so and so on the phone," or no, I wasn't. I wasn't. Those weren't. Oh, here's a good one. Those were the underwear that I bought you under the front seat of the car. Don't you remember that I bought them?
So it really is a phenomenon where you end up feeling crazy because of circumstances that someone has presented. And it really is an interesting term. And so I just wanted my listeners to know, because I thought they're probably wondering, what is that? And you're right, it came from that movie. Everybody Google that movie.
It's great movie.
We only have 60 seconds left. So, again, I really want to stress that if anybody is interested in finding out more about Magnolia Treatment Center, they can call Ashley at 1-888-494-4213, or they can also look up the website, which is www.magnolia-treatmentcenter.com. And Dr. Campling, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and for your devotion to helping women feel better about themselves.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. And again, please, if anyone has any questions or clinicians have questions, don't hesitate to call.
All right. You have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Bye-bye now. Thank you. Bye-bye.
So, as we say at the end of every show, there will only be one of you at all times, so fearlessly have the courage to be yourself, and we will catch you. There's going to be a repeat show on Labor Day, but we will certainly catch you after that. And that will obviously be, we're already into September, and that will be September 10th. And at that point, we'll be talking with Liederman Associates. So you have a great couple of weeks, and know that there's hope, strength, and recovery with Sex Help with Carol the Coach.